Today we are going to discuss the important security concepts. So, understanding and applying these security concepts, how it is very important, is very essential for running any organization effectively. We will understand. So, to understand and apply security concepts, first of all, why these security concepts are very essential, these management concepts and principles, why they are means. So if you want to have a security policy to be developed, or if you want to have a solution deployment, so understanding of these basic concepts and principles is very essential for any organization. To have a better security, they must have some policies. For any application to have without any issues in terms of security, I mean, to have a proper security deployment, you need to understand the security principles. So these security principles and concepts mainly define not only in terms of normal security but also in terms of physical security and other aspects also. So to make an environment more secure, you need to understand these principles. So, and also, let's say each organization will have different perspective of vision and goal, right? In today's life, we can see different organizations are emerging for the different purpose. So what I mean is, it makes someone to create a goals for a specific organization perspective. So it will aid understanding these principles and concepts, will help the policy designers to align the development of policy in terms of goals. And they also help the system implementers to ensure that security is properly addressed when you understand these concepts and principles in detail. And it is like a handbook which will help to build a secure solutions, which will have a secure fundamentals as a principle from the building and designing of the solution itself. So if you want to have emerged a security solution, it is very mandatory to have understanding of these management concepts and principles. Now, to go into little deep about these security fundamental principles, which anyone has to understand, means they comes broadly into five. These are the five pillars of information security. Those are nothing but the confidentiality, integrity, availability, authenticity, and non-reputation. These are the fundamental five pillars which any security solution, if you are thought of implementing or designing, you should follow these five pillars of information security. I mean, it is not mandatory, as I mentioned earlier, as part of the goal and vision and the solution which makes something is essential as per the need of your security solution, it has to follow this thing. What I mean is, see, let's say you have a data which you are hosting in the public domain for the general public. So there, of course, there are five pillars, but confidentiality is does not the fundamental requirement as part of his goal. But as a implementer of a particular solution, you should understand each and every five fundamental principles of information security, such that based on the need and the case and the essentiality of implementing particular solution, you can have the scope. But the next comes is the important thing is CIA triad, which is nothing but the three pillars of the security: confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So generally these things which we call security practitioners tend to call, these are the core security principles. It is believed that to have a proper security solution, it is a balance has to be maintained across the confidentiality, integrity, and availability to emerge a best security solution. So if you want to begin somewhere, of course these five pillars are the core and essential for the information security. But if you want to start, this CIA triad will act as a foundation for security infrastructure goals. If you want to have a security infrastructure or security perspective focused solution you want to design and develop, you must understand the CIA triad, and the importance of CIA triad in making a successful product is very essential. Now, if you want to assess any security control, and if you want to understand the risk and the problem of a certain issue, it is essential to understand this CIA triad. So what is meant by understanding is, see, how you can able to assess any security control. Security control means basically it is a thing which is you had taken into consideration during your deployment or during your design or certain phases. You had taken consideration to this particular aspect of the CIA triad. So these are the fundamental things to assess a security control. So simple thing is, I want to implement an encryption. Let's say I am implementing an encryption, means my focus of security control is to ensure that confidentiality is in place, right? So if you want to judge any security control, it is basically assessment is done based on the how these security controls are properly taking care about the CIA triad. And another thing is, if you want to tell there is a vulnerability or risk something, always you will tell based on how they are going to impact on this CIA triad. Let me say a simple example. Let's say you have some sensitive information of PII data or very critical information banking detail. So if someone is able to, unauthorized person is able to access that sensitive data, it means the vulnerability has impacted the confidentiality. If someone is able to tamper a data which they are not intended to do, it has impacted the integrity. So always if someone able to tell this is the vulnerability, this is the risk I am going to face for this particular product, means it is definitely based on he tried to define that vulnerability or risk based on how they are going to impact on the CIA triad. This is the one of the thing which makes everyone to understand the security controls and risks. Now let's deep dive onto each topic. The first thing is confidentiality. So the confidentiality is to maintain, it is to ensure any data or any objects or any resources remains secret. So see, let's say data, objects, resource, they are interchangeably used but having thin difference. Means let's say I have information which I had stored in a certain file or somewhere, that is what we call it as data, which means it is having, if someone is able to access that thing, they have some meaning out of this. It is something which is important and they have meaning. But in the computer system, this data is tend to go into the different memory addresses space which are holded by these objects. Means data is when processed, in the process of being processed, it handles by these objects. But of course the resources will help to processing this data, they also properly has to be taken care. Means sometimes if you see hardware components like TPM and all these things, so there are sometimes these you want to ensure the security, you will refine on the certain things, certain components in your product which are essential, need to be kept confidential. So ensure data and objects and resources remain secret is the one of the important things. So these resources and everything important components need to be taken care. So what is the fundamental goal of confidentiality means to prevent or minimize unauthorized access. See, had you wondered, see, preventing unauthorized access is good, but how can someone tell a statement like minimizes the unauthorized access, right? See, how someone want to have a control or give a priority to confidentiality to minimize the unauthorized access. In fact, why some minimization? Eliminate, right? That is the best things we thought of. But remember here the thing. Security is something which you can't achieve 100%. Today you may know something for that particular issue or risk you are having control in terms of confidentiality. So always you are trying to implement a control or mechanism to address the confidentiality based on your current state of thing. You can't know what is tomorrow is going to happen. Maybe you are trying to implement a control based on your knowledge and expertise which is having on date. So that is like always we don't know what is the unknown vulnerability. If that is the case, all security jobs are going to end in one day itself, right? Everyone develops one solution. There is no need to maintain security for a lifetime. But always our agenda is to prevent or minimize the unauthorized access. Means doing the best things in terms of the available knowledge base which we need to which available knowledge base which will tell what need to be taken care. So at the same time, confidentiality should not become an obstacle for authorized users. It has to protect authorized access while preventing disclosure. So it means confidentiality is a thing which comes into necessity first of all when there is a need to protect something only for the access of authorized people. This has to keep in mind. Now, what are the confidentiality violations? Sometimes confidentiality this issue occurs because of it is not something like intentional but as a result of human error or oversight during the development of the product or designing something. So the humans are not something like very cautious how this is going to impact. So it is it is mean that humans are not because of intentionally but lack of awareness or something oversight it may lead to things. Sometimes it may caused by the end users or system administrators or someone is who is trying to manage, they are going to misconfigure this thing. So that may also impact the confidentiality. So as I mentioned earlier, designing a security policy is very important. If your security policy has been not properly implemented or properly designed such that it ensures or meet the vision and goal of the organization in terms of security, that also may impact or compromise the confidentiality. Sometimes policies will be there but implementers who are trying to implement these policies, misconfiguration of those controls may end up or lead to impact on the confidentiality. So what we need to do for the confidentiality means, number one, having encryption. Encryption ensures that protected data, it will protect the data from unauthorized access. Means it is a way of technique to ensure confidentiality such that unauthorized persons never able to access this critical data. And the second thing is access control. So restricting data access to authorized users. See, the moment confidentiality comes into the picture, it is the necessity to restrict the data access only to authorized users. How this someone can able to achieve means there should be an access control. I will explain in the subsequent classes what is access control means. It is a process through which you are validating some person before granting access to a sensitive information that can be effectively achieved with the help of access control. And the next one is authentication. So authentication ensures that only verified users can access the data. As part of this authentic access controls, you need to ensure that there is a proper implementation of authentication. See, you are trying to protect access to something, but that mechanism how to validate who is the right person, if it is not properly developed or implemented, it may lead to someone unauthorized person able to access. So simple thing, let's say you have a biometric authentication mechanism, but the biometric is unable to do the proper authentication, but somehow it is not properly implemented. If it is not properly authenticated, it may lead to problems. So proper authentication will address the confidentiality. Sometimes having a network traffic padding, so a lot of data is going onto the networks, so you should not make someone to predict your data. Always have padding, additional bits or injecting of additional way of data external beyond the actual data, which will make someone to do the analysis. It will make preventing analysis very difficult. And one more thing is data classification. So see, confidentiality has to be implemented, but at the cost of what is essential, what is cost effective. These are the fundamental things you should keep in mind as a security practitioner. Implementing of confidentiality is should be always directly proportional to the sensitivity of the data. That is where you need the data classification. If you don't do the data classification, how you will able to understand what is the necessity of important of confidentiality required? Simple analogy. See, if you have a diamond ring and if you have a plastic bucket, so those are which are your essential things in your day to day. But the security protection you give to the diamond ring is very much more when compared to the normal bucket which you used in your day to day activities. So always making the classification of the data which is essential, which is more sensitive, can be make us to take the better decisions in enforcing the confidential countermeasures. So this is one of the requirement. And the last but not least, the having the personal training. See, security always remains on three pillars: people, process, and technology. Let's say if you all have good process, if your organization have good technologies to take care of the security, but the people are failing to adhere this process and technology, it is a problem. Lot of security issues happens because of people are not properly following the best practices. This is not because of their problem, because of lack of awareness. Having an organization to take care of regular personal trainings will make them aware of the current threats. So educate users such that you can prevent the security breaches. This is the confidentiality which we need to take care. When you talk about the key aspects of confidentiality, different times you will use different words to tell there is a necessity of confidentiality. Some of these are the key aspects. Sensitivity. So if someone says the sensitivity in terms of confidentiality means it is an information that can cause harm if disclosed. People always try to enforce this confidentiality. They will have a discretion, means operator will do controlled disclosure to minimize the harm based on discretion. Who is accessing what? That is nothing but the access control. So there if you want to implement something based on the discretion and this thing, who is the identity of the end user, based on that thing we are able to give. So criticality, people may interchangeably use the word criticality in some sort of needing of the confidentiality, means it is an importance of information to mission success. If this is somewhere breached, it will make entire mission collapse. Concealment, this is another way of doing hiding or obfuscating information to prevent exposure. Means something in general way, obfuscation means not making someone to easily understand. So it makes someone very difficult or making someone limited to expose something, which we called as concealment. Secrecy, some national sensitive data we are tend to keep secret, means act of keeping information undisclosed. Privacy, this is also where confidentiality is required to protect the personally identifiable information, which is very sensitive. So seclusion is another way. So wearing storing information in restricted access locations, means I want to have this sensitive data to be kept in a particular very secured environment. That is what we called as seclusion. And isolation, keeping data or systems separate to enhance security. So organizations should define and enforce confidentiality measures based on these principles. This is the aspect of confidentiality. We'll meet in the next section.